in any big way. A lot of the people we are hearing from seem to be concerned about the health effects, and we're just trying to find out, are we really looking at a sudden onslaught of 5G, or is it going to be, I've been told, mostly in the urban areas? So this is just a look-see. So Chris, you're here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Chris Rice. I'm a lawyer, lobbyist here in Montpelier from NMR, West President. Here on behalf of Verizon. I understand the question, or the question that was posed to me was to talk with you about Verizon's 5G rollout plans. And I can be fairly brief in that. Right now, there has been a limited 5G rollout in Sacramento, California, Los Angeles, California, Houston, Texas, and Indianapolis. Those
Not close.
no.
I thought I heard you say the New North End.
Okay.
Maybe later. Those are the announced plans. They stated that they have plans for additional rollouts in 2019 where those might be. I learned a long time ago not to guess on that kind of stuff. So that is, I'm sure, far from the level of detail folks are looking for or would find helpful, but that's all I know. So what I can't tell you about Verizon's 5G, what they are in their promotional materials, essentially 5G is bigger, better, faster than the existing technology. That's 100 times better throughput, 10 times longer battery life, 1,000 times larger data volumes, and 10 times greater reliability. The stat that jumped out to me was that they estimate it will be roughly 20 times faster than the current 4G LTE technology. Again, when that comes to Vermont, it's an open question. There are no publicly available plans to announce that will be in Vermont.
After this, we're going to look at 2G microcell, so it gives you the expense. Okay,
Sure.
So
that's all I
nothing
have.
in the known future.
I think that's a fair way to put it.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Charles?
Bottom line, no 5G. No 5G.
A lot of advertising.
Well,
There's a lot of advertising on 5G.
everybody. All right.
5G.
No 5G.
No 5G.
Is that fake news?
No 5G. Okay, committee. We're live schedule, so we're moving.
Okay, all right, Chuck, we're ready.
Good afternoon, committee. Chuck Storrow, Rhode Public Affairs, on behalf of AT&T. I want to preface all of this by saying I'm not a radio frequency engineer or lawyer, so a lot of this information that I'm going to give you is stuff that I got from the client that I'm kind of regurgitating without knowing a heck of a lot about it. But 5G is the latest generation of cellular mobile communication. It exceeds the 4G LTE, which is what the current networks use, which came after 3G and which came after 2G. 5G will deliver enhanced mobile broadband capabilities that are up to 100 times faster than speeds today with immediate responsiveness, which is called latency. When you hear latency, that's the responsiveness of the network. Just as a reference, a megabit equals 1 million bits. A gigabit equals 1 billion bits. 5G will provide speeds potentially as fast as 20 gigabits per second. And that should be contrasted with 4G LTE is going to run anywhere between 10 to maybe 25 megabits. 5G will facilitate development in, among other things, autonomous vehicles, telehealth and robotic surgery, smart farming, Those would be like tractors going around on fields by themselves, applying as little manure as possible. Connected homes, smart appliances and security systems. 5G would be deployed via small cell sites. It doesn't, the radio frequency that it will use doesn't propagate large distances, so it's gonna be small cells attached to street lights and things like that. The issue of radio frequency energy is regulated by the FCC. FCC limits are conservative. There's a 50-fold safety factor, and small cell sites generate RF energy that is hundreds of times lower than FCC standards. And then I should mention that under the Federal Telecommunications Act, states and localities are preempted from imposing requirements that prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the deployment of wireless telecom infrastructure.
Are they planning to put it in Vermont anytime soon?
It's a matter of years as opposed to months.
Okay.
Shows up in several months, it's a broken
That's-
promise.
That might be a little closer to today than,
No, it's not gonna happen anytime soon. I'm not allowed to, and
Yeah, I
and
know.
nobody knows really when it will come, but they're just rolling it out like Verizon in some of the larger metropolitan areas.
okay. But these would be, yeah. Okay. These would be small cell, so not big,
At least initially, yes, yeah.
all right.
So I do have one, but you said they do not propagate very far away from these, like, poles or whatever it is that they're
Right.
gonna be using, but give me some idea, what does that mean?
Boy, I saw a slide, you know, we're talking probably, and don't hold me to this, quarter-mile maybe radius. You know, somebody shaking their head, you know, it's not, you know, depending on the topography, what radio frequency spectrum you're using, you know, a larger cell site can, you know, 3 to 4 mile radius. It's gonna be considerably less than that.
Okay. But again, this is internet and we cannot regulate it. Yeah, so that also means we can't ban it.
I would think there'd be a problem in that
I
regard.
would think so. Okay,
But we typically have some authority over location, right?
yes.
And these are gonna be
Cell
very location specific, sounds like. If
phones.
they're-
Can you say that again, Chris? You said-
Well, we have usually siting authority.
Right.
And it sounds like you need a lot of these because they're low power or whatever, and so I'm curious to watch that unfold.
To see where it goes. I have a feeling your county may get them for some of the rest of us, just because of the number of people there and the uptake and the expense, so. Okay, thank you. And Gordon Mathews.
Yes,
Okay. And you're with VTel.
correct.
And from what we can figure out, we've seen copies of cards coming from VTel saying that 5G is coming. And that seems to be where we're getting most of the emails from. So can you give us an idea of how soon it might be coming, or what your thoughts are?
Sure, so we don't have any real specific time frame about when we expect 5G to be available to customers. What VTel provides currently are two primary wireless services. One is a fixed broadband service, so folks get wireless internet at their home, and the other is a mobile phone and data service. What VTel's doing now is utilizing two spectrum bands essentially, which are low frequency spectrum bands. They're primarily in the 700 megahertz range and up to 1700. We have a third spectrum band that we expect to be able to take advantage of for 5G, and that's called the 2.6 gigahertz spectrum band. So I don't know if folks got the
If you send it in,
slide
we
there,
have it,
but
we have it in
there's
our.
kind of just a very general overview of the differences in spectrum and propagation in the third slide here. So VTel is currently utilizing the, on the left side, the very low end of that spectrum band. There's quite a range that's anticipated to be made available for 5G all the way up to, up to 100 gigahertz. So that's what they call millimeter wave spectrum, and that's where you need quite dense network design, many more microcells. I think that's what the gentleman from AT&T was referring to. But in terms of what VTel is doing now to be prepared for 5G, on the last slide, so we've been the better part of the past year and completing just this month, we're transitioning. We've done a overall wireless network core upgrade that will allow us to integrate 5G software loads from our primary vendor, our network design vendor, which is Ericsson. We've been testing with 4 sites where we are currently testing the propagation and performance characteristics of the 2.6 gigahertz spectrum that we expect to at some point be able to take advantage of for 5G, getting an idea of how that propagates, what kind of speeds customers are seeing. We have customers utilizing that spectrum now, so we're able to get some real-time results from them. There's some other features that go along with the core and software upgrades that we've done. One is carrier aggregation that allows us to combine a couple different spectrum bands and achieve higher speeds through that. We've also been trying to encourage our existing customers to transition for the fixed wireless. We have a couple different options. One is a router that most people are probably familiar with that kind of sits on your desktop and receives the signal and rebroadcasts it in the home wirelessly for Wi-Fi that everybody's familiar with.
Yeah.
And the other is an outdoor antenna that does a much better job of pulling in the signal, and you get a signal with that equipment that you might not otherwise be able to get with a mobile phone, for example, or a traditional in-home router. So we've been working to transition existing customers to that outdoor technology.
Outdoor antenna. Okay, and you have small cells that broadcast to that, or a tower?
No, so all our cells right now, all our cell sites are traditional, what they call macro cell sites. So what you see on a cell tower, or we have a number of them on silos or different structures,
Church
but
towers,
they're all macro cells.
Okay. So you don't have any microcell technology right now?
We don't have microcells deployed right now.
Okay. When, any time frame you're thinking about 5G, or where are you thinking about putting it?
So I would say,
We're looking at the not in my lifetime kind of ranges here. I mean,
yeah, we're hesitant like everybody else to make real projections, but probably not before end of this year and into 2020 at the
Probably in my lifetime at that.
So just on this last page, just for reference, there's a little bit of a chart from Ericsson about when they expect devices to be available. So it's 5G specific devices. So you're looking at in the spectrum bands that we're utilizing.
It's very, very hard to read.
Sure.
With all due respect,
Yep, so you're looking at the first half of this year at the earliest for handheld devices, into next year and into 2020. So that's the general time frame. So essentially those devices to utilize 5G aren't market available right now. So that gives you a little sense of 5G's certainly in the very early stages in terms of technology being available to deploy.
Okay.
What is a pocket router?
Pocket router, not something that we use, but my understanding is that it's another term for it, I believe, would be a MiFi device. So it's essentially a micro router that is very portable. So the way that you have I was mentioning the desktop router that can receive a wireless signal. This is a smaller version of that. You can move around if you're going to a
So it's,
The cafe.
the reason I asked, of course, it was on the chart as the earliest availability, but it's not relevant to us in any way.
No, the chart was more for general reference in terms of, when the industry is expecting things to be available, but that's not a technology that we really utilize.
Is it cost effective without doing 5G in a rural area?
We expect to deploy it, I would say, very selectively. I think we don't anticipate rolling out a lot of small cells. We think that in the 2.6 gigahertz range, the signal propagates fairly well. So we expect to be able to deploy it selectively on existing macro sites, and folks will be able to get service that way. Certainly the signal does not travel as far, and it's more prone to interruption if it,
The 5G.
this frequency range that we expect to be able to utilize for 5G. So the signal doesn't travel around obstacles or through foliage or things like that nearly as well. So it's certainly more limited, but you get higher speeds where it's available.
Okay, so tend to balance.
So just to be clear, this little chart here is not at all Vermont specific or regional specific. This is just the state of the industry. Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Other questions?
So I'll bite to ask the real simple question. We're struggling with getting broadband to the last mile, and we're told that wireless doesn't cut it. Does that change with the introduction of 5G?
I don't think that it changes. Certainly in the very rural areas, 5G is like any technology. It's the deployment is dependent on where you expect to be able to serve customers and the demand for it. So I think 5G is probably going to be more limited than what you see for current wireless technology, just because you need more sites, you need more infrastructure. You certainly need, if you're talking about small cells, you need fiber as a critical piece of that. So those small cells need to be fiber fed. So I think we've seen some of the testimony earlier about the potential approaches to more fiber deployment throughout the state, and that would be kind of a essential precursor to really getting 5G out there statewide. It's having the fiber backbone.
So you have to have fiber to even think about it. And
Well,
it's
certainly
not,
if
you're
you're-
not thinking about turning your entire system over to 5G at
No.
any one point. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Just one, you may have heard it, but where is 5G right now being used in the United States? Anywhere? I mean, I was looking at a Washington Post article.
I think my understanding just from reading the news articles is that Verizon and AT&T have deployed it selectively, I think, in some urban markets, as,
Yeah.
essentially as test cases.
I think we saw San Francisco, Houston, New York. Not Burlington.
Now what?
Not Burlington yet.
Bennington.
Not Bennington yet either.
Good spot to test
Okay.
everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
That's it. All right. Good. Okay.